In a world where most people watch movies and then forget about them, these brave heroes join forces to watch them again and then talk about them. Join them in their epic journey as they go back in time, a decade and beyond, to revisit and break down films from a vast array of genres. Do these movies hold up over time? Are they classics? Find out on Retro Movie Roundtable. Starring your hosts, Brian Fry, Chad Robinson, Dustin Melbardis, Nathan Lutz, and Russell Guest. Coming now to headphones in your ears.
Welcome all you lords, ladies and knights, to the Retro Movie Roundtable. Welcome to the show where we watch movies and then talk about them. Joining me today is my good friend and co-host, Mr. Dustin Melbardis from deep in the heart of Texas. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing wonderful. I am so happy to be addressing our movie tonight.
Yes, and winter is coming from up north and right here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania with me. Dustin, you've got the warm spot. We're holding down the cold this zone. Chad Robinson, how you doing, sir?
I am unprepared for a Game of Thrones quote with that winter is coming. I don't know what to do with that, but hi, everybody.
It's cold. It's cold. And,
the North remembers.
Yeah, I like to know that when somebody's listening to this in 2024 and it's July outside, they sit there and go, they were cold when they recorded this, but Dustin wasn't. So.
It's like,
you know what's wild?
60.
You remember when Game of Thrones was the biggest thing in the world? There's so much content now, and we're only a few years removed that I really don't even think about that show that much anymore.
You're right. Things just keep coming, but that's why we need this rule. It's almost like this filter. If it holds up after 10 years and it's worth talking about then, if only there was a show that applied some kind of rule like that. So only the
You're
real
welcome,
stuff would hold up.
audience.
Yeah. All right. Now, fighting movies are not just for guys. Name your favorite female fight scene in a movie, Dustin.
Ooh, I guess right off the top of the head, this would have to be The Bride against Oren Ishii at the end of Kill Bill Volume 1. But that's really the first that comes to mind. By the time you two answer, I bet some more can pop into my head.
I like that was a good pick, though. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the Kill Bill movies or Quentin Tarantino, as Chad and I reluctantly say too often on this show. But I like your pick, though, for that superlative. Chad, what about you?
I think I'm going to go Sonya Blade and Kano in the original Mortal Kombat.
Ah, okay, yeah. And I'm going to go with Charlize Theron in Atomic Blonde. Particularly the scene that involves a balcony and swinging down from it. There's a moment of this in the previews, but there's so much more to it than that. Charlize is tough in this one. I like it. And somewhere I know Brian Fry is shaking his head, nodding yes. So
somewhere out there, Brian Fry is saying his answer would be all of the fight sequences in Sucker Punch.
Oh, I like Sucker Punch.
I ranked it my worst movie of that year.
I'm closer to Dustin than you and Brian, Chad, but I mean...
Wow.
Yeah.
Another honorable mention, but it's the exact opposite. The entire movie, they made a Dead or Alive movie based on the Dead or Alive fighting game franchise. It focused a lot on the female characters, and that movie's garbo. Mm-hmm. So that's an honorable mention, or I guess maybe a dishonorable mention.
This is just maybe recency bias, but the World War II Wonder Woman scene also pretty awesome.
Yeah. That's not so much a fight scene, is it? It's more just an action scene. Like now we're stretching it.
I don't know. She takes on an entire battlefield, man. I don't know. What is the last movie you saw?
The most recent movie I saw was the original Drunken Master today, as I was prepping to get into this podcast. But I also watched from 1993 one of the greatest sports movies, I believe, of all time, The Program, football movie. Well known for having a lot of actual collegiate names. They're not all fake collegiate names like Southwestern State University. They have University of Michigan, they have Iowa in there. They have all these actual teams. It's pretty neat and incredible movie starring James Caan.
When you said made up names, I thought you meant the players, the Key and Peele, Hingle McCringleberry and stuff like that.
Sharkwarius Londarius, yeah.
All right, Chad, what about you? What's the last movie you saw?
I watched a 2022 slasher film called Student Body. It has Kevin Smith's daughter in it, and it was fine.
Does she speak? Is she Silent Jane?
No, she has a lot of lines. Yeah, she's a main character.
Lost opportunity.
I did like that.
What is the last movie I saw? I saw No Time to Die. I watched it again.
Ooh.
I had a. It's jolting the first time you watch it
Mhm.
as a Bond fan. So I wanted to go back and take it in without the shock factor. And I'm not gonna say too much about it at this point, but it goes down better the second time once you know what you're in for. But I've texted Chad this in the past and said, it just doesn't quite feel like a Bond movie.
No, it's not
as much. So it's a fine movie. But I don't get when I need that to quench my thirst for Bond, which is frequent and I can be quite thirsty. I'm not sure this one's going to do it for me as much as other ones. So that's my stance on that one.
It is not fun. If you want a fun Bond movie, that's not the one for you.
But if you want a fun movie, we do have a good movie for you. Dustin, what movie are we going to be covering today?
The Legend of Drunken Master.
The Legend of Drunken Master was made in 1994, and it releases in North America in 2000. So I'm going to just call it a 94 movie. So it comes to America. It grosses, $11.5 million. It places at 129th in the box office that year. It comes in behind The Gift and above Cyberworld. The number one movie in 2000 was How the Grinch Stole Christmas. So this didn't smash the U.S. box office. However, it does have a cult following. IMDb gives us a 7.6 rating. And the critics of Rotten Tomatoes give it an 84%, and the audience likes it as well at 88%. And it is a Hong Kong Film Award winner for Best Action Choreography, which I feel like is something our Oscars desperately need to add to their, they need to recognize those action movies and those comedy movies and, all those things.
Agreed.
Yeah, they need to broaden themselves to honor all of that stuff. And then the other one that they won is the Hong Kong Film Awards nominee was the Best Film Editing and the Golden Horse Awards. Best Action Choreography. So, as we go into this, Dustin, you're our kung fu guy. You're a martial arts guy. Tell us, had you seen this movie?
I am totally a martial arts and kung fu guy when I'm watching it on screen. Russell, you may remember, eras and eras ago when we were in college together, I actually took a college karate class. At the University of Tennessee, everybody needs to take a physical education course, and I took a karate class, but that's about the extent of my martial arts training. That being said, it is one of my favorite things to watch on film, and this has been a favorite of mine since I've seen it. I believe I first watched this movie in middle school. It's funny you mentioned the Bond movie. What I used to do was I used to ride my bike to the Blockbuster Video near the Winn-Dixie, and I would take some of my week's allowance and I would rent a movie. And for a while I was on a kick where I would rent every single Bond in a row. And then after that was over, I just sort of went to, I don't think there was like a kung fu section, but I started looking for any of the kung fu movies I could find just to get more of it. So this is maybe my favorite thing, and this has been one of my favorites for a very long time.
Wow, okay. So now, Chad, you're not a kung fu guy.
What?
Oh, you are a kung fu guy now.
I mean, I'm not Dustin, apparently.
No, you're not. No, you're not. No, you're not.
I am also not Chad, at least not this episode.
You're a horror guy. That's your thing. Sorry. I don't know.
Why do I just get pigeonholed into one box? This is unfair.
How many boxes do you want to have? I mean,
many boxes.
Greedy.
Yes. I was in a play called Boxes.
Jeez,
so.
Okay. Chad, you may not be as enthusiastic about kung fu as a martial arts movie. Is this one a new one for you?
This is. I have not seen this. It spurred me on to go see a bunch of other Jackie Chan Hong Kong films. I tried to watch Super Cop. The problem with that was the dub was so bad that I'm having a difficult time finding original voice dubs. It's very distracting growing up with Rush Hour. I know what Jackie Chan sounds like. So having a completely different American businessman voice for Jackie Chan is off-putting. I gave up on my quest of Super Cop. I got about halfway through, and I watched a Bruce Lee movie.
Oh, you've been on a little miniature kick here.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. No pun intended. I like Jackie Chan, and I've seen a number of his movies. And this one, I hadn't gotten to it, and it had been on my list. I knew if you like Jackie Chan, this is one you should see. So I'm really glad that this one came on my plate, and I got to watch it now. So this is my first time going through it. So I had a lot of fun with this one, and it just took me back into peak Jackie Chan of, how fun he is. He's skilled like Bruce Lee, but he adds this comedy to it that I really enjoy. So had a great time with it.
Russell, you said is like it's from the get-go with his career having comedy as part of his filmmaking like desires. It's just been hand in hand with the incredible fight choreography and his devotion to his craft. It does not feel like it's tacked on. It's just what we know about Jackie Chan is you're gonna get comedy and fighting. You're gonna get those things.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so this is your final warning. There will be spoilers that lie ahead. So if you have not seen Drunken Master, or The Legend of Drunken Master, go see it and come back and enjoy it after this. We'll be back after these messages.
Welcome to the Flashback Flicks Retro Movie Podcast. I'm Ricky.
I'm Grayson.
And every week we review a movie from the past and reflect on things we missed, things we loved, and things we want to see again.
Yeah, because we believe any movie worth watching is worth watching again.
So if you like films, friendship, and a lot of callbacks,
I mean, just so many callbacks,
then subscribe on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever RSS feeds go for like-minded movie-loving individuals. Like you.
What happens when two modern film fans go back and rewatch all the old classic films from yesteryear to see if they hold up? You get the Classic Film Jerks podcast. Find the Classic Film Jerks podcast on all the major platforms.
Now, this is your final warning. There will be spoilers that lie ahead. And for those who haven't seen The Legend of Drunken Master since 1994, or if you're in the United States, 2000, Dustin, can you tell people what happened?
Our story starts, as many often do, with a naive boy trying to lie, cheat, or trick the system. Or evade taxes, in this case. Wong Fei-hung is the son of Wong Ke-ying, one of the famous 10 Tigers of Canton, and a respected physician. Returning from a trip to collect ingredients, Fei-hung attempts to dodge paying a tax by sneaking some ginseng into a diplomat's luggage. Inside that very luggage is an ancient artifact being smuggled out of the country, leading to a friendly kung fu encounter with Fu Wenqi, the province's most decorated hero. They mix up their packages, leading to the British ambassador responsible for smuggling the artifacts out to pursue Fei-hung in his home. To defeat them, he unleashes his forbidden drunken techniques at the urge of his stepmother. His father finds out and disowns him for breaking his rules and bringing dishonor to the family name. Fei-hung finds new purpose at the urging of Fu Wenqi to preserve the country's heritage, and then foils the foreign smuggling ring through defeating the strongest bodyguards and henchmen of the British ambassador before being recognized as a national hero and restoring honor to his family's name.
All right. Now, Drunken Master 2, which I guess is what this is also known as, or The Legend of Drunken Master, was a success in Hong Kong. It grossed an all-time record of $40.9 million there, which is a lot of money. And during its theatrical run there, its success was kind of surprising. We're not in an era of kung fu films or martial arts films really happening right now. The 90s is not really a hotbed for this. And so this is also 16 years after the original Drunken Master, as Dustin had mentioned earlier. There's a lot of things that are unexpected about the success of this. Dustin, what do you think made this work?
That's a good question. This is maybe the first really good-looking Jackie Chan movie I had seen in terms of brightness. Most of like the older stuff, like we don't have any grainy video. I think it's exciting. I think there is, especially if you're going to discuss its popularity in China, it is a not a retelling, but Wong Fei-hung was a real guy, and there are many different versions of how Wong Fei-hung is sort of portrayed in cinema. Jet Li also did that with, I think it was Once Upon a Time in China. I might be wrong with that name, but like Wong Fei-hung is like if you're going to mix sort of history and then excitement. We talked about how this is both comedy and fighting. It put all these things together in a really well-developed package. And so while I may not be able to talk about the zeitgeist of the time as to why it was successful, sometimes that might just be because the movie was destined to be successful because of how good it was. And if it's breaking these records, that might be just the answers. Oh, this was just really good and it kind of earned all its accolades. It wasn't riding some type of wave.
Yeah. Now, Chad, Jackie Chan is obviously the centerpiece of this one. Everything's running through him on this one, including he takes over as the director at the end, in fact. But we've studied Bruce Lee and Enter the Dragon last year, one of our best downloading episodes ever. Dustin's on that one. And then we've also covered Hero, which you guys were both on with Jet Li. What makes Jackie Chan different than, say, a major martial arts vehicle leader like Bruce Lee or Jet Li?
It's
Other than his name's not Lee.
It's the comedy. We've touched on it already, but Jackie Chan is not afraid to mug it up for the camera. He's not afraid to get in those winks and nods. This movie starts out with pushing his friend twice and talking about, hey, we can save even more money if you keep falling. He's like, oh, so clumsy, so clumsy. So yeah, he's got a ton of gags here. We get a almost Abbott and Costello type scene with him switching the boxes around and moving. Mm-hmm. You get, what's in that box? No, that one. I mean that one. And he keeps flashing the same box over and over. And I'm sure he's influencing too all the side characters we're meeting. I didn't catch the girl's name that clearly has a crush on him and wants to learn to be a drunken boxer. She was
Fawn.
Yeah. She is not helpful at all to preventing a fight, and she's great. They bring in all these characters that are just adding to the comedy. So for me, in a Jackie Chan, we've touched on it. Yeah, he brings a different kind of fun to the scenes.
Yeah, I think it's a good cocktail. I think he has serious skill. Like, I think he's awesome, but he bends it to the choreography to use the environment perhaps a little more than those who have come before him. And I'm not as adept in this, but is that fair to say? Like, I mean, Jackie will take a room and use the file cabinet to slam somebody's head, and then he'll pick up a broom and then use the broom in this way, turn the broom around, like pull the head off and use it that way, and then like take the part that he pulled off the broom, stick it back on there and hit you with it. Like, it's kind of like parkour before parkour was ever a thing. It's not just getting from point A to point B. It's how you get from point A to point B. I'm going to beat up all of these guys, but it's how I beat you up that's going to make you smile.
Yeah, he is adept at fighting with furniture. And at the time, I thought, this seems like a Jackie Chan unique quality. But I had seen from 1980 the movie The Young Master. And Jackie Chan's character gets soundly beaten by another kung fu practitioner who fights using only the tea room bench, the same bench that we see Jackie Chan using in the courtyard fight against the peacocks in Western suits. He is very good at that. We see in this movie the sort of long bamboo rod that gets splintered, and he uses it to take out the axe gang. But he had been doing that forever, using the tables. A crowded restaurant is a Jackie Chan kung fu dream, because he's going to be jumping on tables and ducking underneath things. I've seen this a lot, and he's not the only one that does it, but maybe he's the one that does it the best. To piggyback a little bit off of the comedy that Chad mentioned, I had said, like, I didn't think this movie was riding any type of wave, but after its 2000 release, I think we started to see with Rush Hour and Shanghai Nights and Shanghai Noon, we started to see, like, American audiences want this and like this. So, like, you could almost say that this movie, which really was a 94 movie, did start that kind of, that wave, so to speak. And other stars that were, famous in Hong Kong, you can't see Jet Li even cracking a smile, let
Nice.
alone making
Very
a
intense.
joke.
Very
You
intense.
can't see it. You can see, I'm thinking of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Chow Yun-Fat is kind of a little more serious. Michelle Yeoh, who we loved in Sunshine, like she's a little more serious. Yi-Sheng. So the people that are like kind of introduced to us as far as coming over from Chinese cinema, none of them have the comedic expertise as what Chad was alluding to. And I don't know if it can. I can't think of any other name that does it quite as well as he does. Like really, I'm kind of drawing a blank here.
I would go so far to say is I would enjoy Jackie Chan in certain roles without any martial arts. Now that's a bold claim because it's like something he's so good at, but what I'm actually complimenting is that he's got a charm. He's got just this very affable personality that you're going to like him. There's something that I think there is a magnetic quality that makes you like him. And he is funny. And he's funny also in dialogue, which we definitely saw in Rush Hour. He definitely plays up the fish out of water aspect really well. And I definitely think that what he brings to the table beyond his fighting is actually one of the things that I like so much about Jackie Chan. So that's what I meant. Like this stuff's fun. And somehow the fight scenes are also not as brutal. Like he's plowing people down. I mean, we also saw, like, again, let's compare that to, say, Hero. Like, we saw him mowing people down. Or Enter the Dragon. Bruce Lee's mowing people down. It seems painful in a way, but whereas somehow they're getting hurt, they're getting laid out on the floor, but there's something so much like putting his thumb on his nose and wiggling his fingers like, wow, wise guy, eh? Like, like, I'm just getting started. And I think it has to do with the fact that he, like, the drunk boxing component of this, I mean, it's like Popeye getting his spinach, Nobody would probably actually fight better when their senses are dulled down and everything is taken down a notch. But just the concept of that in itself is a funny idea. And so they're throwing him tons of alcohol and he's drinking it while throwing bottles at people. And just the very premise of that's funny. And also the I can't do it. And, his stepmom is making him do it. And it's pretty funny.
Chad, I want to talk to you. He just mentioned the stepmom. We were texting a couple days ago. I think I was referencing Anita Mui when I said, like, oh, her character, her dub is so different between 94 and 2000. Very different English voice lines, the lines themselves and tone. But you said something that like made me like smile sitting there on my couch reading that text, which you was like, I adored her character.
Yes.
I loved that. Like is she the like funniest side character, do you think?
Absolutely. For me, she's the enabler. But even when we first meet her, this is a culture and a time period where the women aren't really supposed to be doing anything else other than housewives, domestic duties, and she's hosting a mahjong game. And she's faking treating all of her friends for illnesses, and her friends are faking having headaches while just cracking up laughing. In her oblivious, whether it's conscious or unconscious, whatever, he may just be ignoring it. Husband, it's like, hey, you're not supposed to be seeing patients, but she gets fantastic lines. She talks with the bonsai tree. Did I forget to throw that out? Just every bit of her scheming. It's almost like a Chinese version of Lucille Ball for her.
I really wrote that down in my notes. There's a Lucy quality to her, and that's high praise.
Yeah, absolutely.
She's great, and yeah, just I think the comedy is kind of what makes this like the fire starter for a new. And I don't think it lasted very long, but like sort of like it was a very quick wave, a short tide. I don't know what the word for it is, but there were those comedic kung fu movies. Charlie's Angels and Full Throttle came out right around this time. Which, to go back to your original question, watching Cameron Diaz, Drew Barrymore, and Lucy Liu do their fight scenes, incredible. They did a great job. So like there was like a little maybe 4 or 5 year window where it's like, boom, look at all this fun stuff, and then it just kind of disappeared. So like this movie might have been the one that kicked all that off.
Yeah, just piggybacking on Chad on the stepmom was so funny. She somehow just keeps things moving. I mean, I actually felt like the last part of this movie it goes more serious, and then the fighting does become more intense, and it's impressive. But there's a tone shift in the back. It could be even the last eighth of the movie. It's just the last part of this movie, and they're going for action climax. But I wasn't sure I wanted to totally let go of that because I have been laughing so much, and that's what's going to bring me back to this movie again later. Now they finish on a goofy note. I'm not sure they landed the laugh quite right in the very end because he's got like alcohol poisoning and like he's like kind of a drunk dummy. I don't know. Maybe just having his stomach pumped is enough or whatever.
Well, Russell, I think you're mentioning something. You're alluding to something that is not a part of every cut of this film, I believe.
Oh, okay.
So good, because I had no idea what he was talking about.
Okay, so
no,
Chad,
this I've stepped into something here. Dustin, straighten us out here.
what Russell is describing is, and the dimension release of this movie in North America leaves this out, and I'm so glad they did. If you hadn't seen this before, it's really only like 30 seconds or so. But most cuts of this movie end after he defeats John, played by Ken Lo, in the steel mill. And like then there's a very short little celebratory, oh, thank you, how's your son doing? Oh, he's recovering, but he'll be better. And it just kind of ends with like a snapshot of things have worked out. But there's a cut of it with maybe an extra 30 seconds or so where they go back to the family estate, and as a result of Fei Hung drinking that industrial alcohol / gasoline substance, whatever it is, fictional or otherwise, he has now become, I'm not going to say an invalid, but he's so mentally disabled that he can't see or walk correctly. His hands are crumbled up in the way that 90s and 2000s movies would have anybody with some type of mental impairment like have their hands be constantly grasping at things. Really poor taste, I gotta say. And I'm so glad that most cuts do not include what Russell was just mentioning.
So this is clearly this is the cut that I got a hold of, and I kind of thought like, oh, they brought the funny back, but I don't know if that's a good. I don't know.
It's not the right kind of funny you want, especially now.
No,
I was gonna say I was trying to transport myself back to '94. I'm saying, am I laughing at this in '94? I'm not sure. I don't.
It's
think
South Park-esque, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I'm not even sure. I feel like South Park is also thumbing their nose at people who laugh at that as they're making jokes about that. If that makes any sense.
Yeah,
you're right. South Park is operating on a different level, and in this decision at the end of this movie, I'm very glad it was cut out.
Like they make you like Timmy and Jimmy. Like,
right.
They start with a joke that's really flat and one-dimensional, like this movie finishes, but then there's something more there, which I think Matt Stone and Trey Parker are great comedy writers, underrated, and so I'll have their back on that one. But this one, I'm sorry, I just like, not to give too much away, but I felt like how this movie resolved was a little bit of such a shame because I enjoyed like 95% of this movie, and like I said, the big fight scene, I'm okay with it being like this is the intense moment, like I'm okay with that. But you got to wrap it up right, and I think that's the one place where I left going like, I'm going to come back, I'm going to enjoy this, and I actually looked to buy it, but for some reason, it's really expensive to buy.
Huh.
This is the second movie we've covered this year where like getting an old copy of this is like $26 or something like that for a Blu-ray, or for like DVDs are very hard to find on this one. So if you want to add this one to your collection, you really got to shell out the dollars at this point in time for it.
Yeah, see, usually I won't do this, although I feel like this keeps coming up with Dustin movies. I don't remember the other one that had an alternate cut, but I told Dustin, he's like, well, what does the fan say? I have no idea what the fan said, and he gave me the two lines. I said, well, my fan said this one. It did not have that weird ending that Russell's talking about, or I would have notes about it and I would be unhappy. So I watched it, and he's like, oh, you got better sound, but worse voice acting. Here, go watch this. So this movie kind of has an issue right away of, like, there are too many possibilities out there. I did watch, I'll call it the Dustin cut, with Jackie Chan's voice actually doing the English dub.
Yes.
Is that what I got? Is that what I got, Dustin?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean,
I am not a dub snob, though. I mean,
you would know.
Chad gets on me about that.
You would definitely know. Here, I'll ask you the same question, and listeners, I'm asking you too. The fan that he makes and that he brings with him to the last big action sequence should say, if you want the best version of it, I believe, should say that a boat floats on water but can also sink in it. That's the fan that you want. If that fan says that water is important to life, but you can also drown in it, then you're getting possibly the worst theatrical cut and definitely the worst voice lines. Chad, you hit the nail on the head.
I got the
here.
second one, so yeah.
Okay,
I got the water. Yeah, one.
Yeah.
So
there's literally Chad, you hit the nail on the head here. There's literally like almost differences to how the movie plays out depending on how they dubbed it. I know that in one of the two, it seems as if fishmonger Shang Tsung and Fei Hung work together to get into the British consulate or embassy or whichever term they use. And then in the other one, the two of them act independently and don't know that they're there, which is why they're surprised and start fighting each other.
That is funny. And I watched that, like that was in my cut and it made sense in my cut. And I enjoyed that part.
Yeah, that's so...
wow, you're really describing some big differences. I don't think it's been since we covered the movie Legend that there was such a discrepancy. If you watch the director's cut, it makes a lot more sense. It's a much longer movie, too. And whereas if you don't watch it, I to this day, Brian and Chad still go around grumbling about it. And that's what happens if you watch the US theatrical.
You keep bringing it back up, and I will keep saying, do not watch it, and certainly do not watch a longer version of it.
I do think you would owe it to yourself to see the director's cut.
Have you seen the director's cut of Baby's Day Out, Russell?
Not yet. So there's something that's really fun about watching one guy take down a whole like bunch of people to just see like the one man against the world. It can be serious like in Jason Bourne, or it can be, or like The Matrix, it can be like fantasy. Like, I don't know what it is that I like so much about that, but this movie has that to it of the odd man, like one man against four in the streets. That was just so much fun. Or I'm going to take an entire building down of steel mill baddies. Felt like a video game. And I don't mean that in a bad way, actually. There was something building about it, like of just like, oh man, what challenge is he going to do next? And he and his old master taking down literally an army and a gang of gang members. It's just so wild. There's no way it would play out like that, but there's something just a lot of fun about watching somebody plow everybody down. Yeah,
with him and Fu Wenqi, the like the province's most decorated officer, he's the guy that was looking for the Empire's seal. He's the guy that shows up at the house, and Ling, the stepmother, like actually kind of gets some good hits on him in that scene.
Triple kick to the groin, man. Oh
yeah. I got to say another thing about Jackie Chan's fight choreography. There's something mentioned in some of the 70s kung fu movies, which is that like, oh, there are men's styles and women's styles. And both Ling in this movie and then his aunt in the 1978 Drunken Master film perform strictly feminine kung fu styles. And it's very cool, the difference that you see. And I guess there's a little comedy to that scene, too, when Fei Hung is like, oh, father, he's hurting me. And he steps in, and Ling's kind of upset. He's like, no, I was just playing. I'm fine. It's good. But, like, that guy, when we're talking about Fu Wenqi and Fei Hung in the restaurant, and then the Axe Gang shows up.
That little restaurant saloon scene, that was cool. Russell's saying one-on-one, and those are fun scenes, but I like the tag team action. I like your right-hand man tossing you props to throw in, or when the bamboo splits and you've got to use it. So yeah, the Fu Wenqi scenes in that restaurant, that was a big highlight for me. It just enables so much more, even with the stepmom tossing the bottles of alcohol. Again, it's that secondary actor, actress that's just fueling the fight, sometimes literally.
Yeah, and going back to her again, Jackie Chan is 9 years older than she is.
way!
And
I did not know that.
Yeah, and it doesn't really make any sense for as far as a casting. But when she's this good, you don't question it. You don't ask about it. There's no jokes about like, haha, my father married a super young woman again or something. There's none of the addressing of that. It was noticeable. I was like, I even had a little bit of a like, oh wait, this is his mom or his stepmom, and then I was like, something's not right. And then I just went with it after a certain point because she was awesome. But that's a lot to overcome as an actress when you're technically not, something's odd about your selection, but then you just go like, you shrug your shoulders and go like, I get it. She probably was better than anybody else who came in for the auditions.
Man, reading her Wikipedia, she was a prodigy at just everything she tried. Like, she was a fantastic musician who literally just retired, said, I'm on top of everything, I've done everything, so I'm going to go do acting and be awesome at that. And then I'm going to go be a philanthropist and social activist and be awesome at that. And unfortunately, she was taken from us due to, I believe it was cervical cancer, way too soon. But man, I think this was one of her earlier roles, and it's sad that she passed away in her 40s.
Through dubbing sometimes, through another culture's lens, through, just it wasn't necessarily made for our audience. So sometimes, particularly with secondary characters, things just don't stand out. And these secondary characters did stand out in a way. I liked his dad. I liked him. I liked his stepmom. I liked
Mr. Chow.
Yes,
I did like Mr. Chow. Yeah, and I did like who's the guy they said like blame it on Cho.
Yeah,
yes.
that's
poor Cho.
Sorry, blame it on Cho. I was really surprised at the depth of this cast. The baddies are a little bit flat, one-dimensional 90s baddies. That's very indicative of what you have here in America too. Like, they're not all Hans Gruber. So I mean, and even he's a bit of a caricature. So I mean, these are definitely flat, one-dimensional bad guy baddies. But somehow when you have this comedic kind of tone to it, it kind of works. Something you guys mentioned in the hero episode of it took Chad's enjoyment out of their by kind of having this Chinese
Propaganda
kind of bend to it.
Propaganda.
Yeah, propaganda bend. Yeah, so there's a nationalist bent here. The British, suits are evil guys trying to take the artifacts and make China less Chinese. And does that get in your way here, Chad? Because it bothered you before. Obviously, there's a historical thing that was heavier for you before, but is it bothering you here in closer modern times?
This isn't the same as Hero. So Hero took a story of, hey, we should all submit to a government, and this is the most honorable path. And that governor, or in that case, the king, wound up being an absolute psychopath. So, Hero has historical issues. This one, it's no different than Indiana Jones using the Nazis to steal artifacts, whatever. So the Chinese have the British as stealing their culture, stealing something. I'm fine with that. The nationalism's there, but it's not giving a message of obey and submit to a totalitarian government. So you want to use them. I'm sure a ton of countries use Americans as their bad guys. It's easy. We're loudmouths, and they probably have rednecks showing up in German films. I don't know, but yeah, I'm fine with it here.
I think the stereotypical American, when you talk to people from Europe, is always like somebody from Texas.
Yeah, that's fine. With Yosemite Sam, 2 guns, just walking around, ready to shoot anything.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Like in Dracula, Quincy.
Uh-huh.
So, Dustin, what did you think about how this movie is made, like in terms of its direction?
One of the worst criticisms I've given to a movie before is that it just seems like this movie's 10 scenes just kind of bookended next to one another and nothing flows together. With this movie, I kind of felt like sometimes moving from, the 38-minute mark to the 48-minute mark, some things were just a little too convenient. We had a henchman find Fei Hung in a city of tens of thousands or whatever. Like that never happens. I don't know what to say about like criticizing the director's ability to put a story together cohesively plot wise, because the director's a martial artist. He's not a filmmaker in that sense. He is Fu Wenqi. That's the director. But when it comes to like cohesion or like how well the story like ends up enveloping you at the end, if there wasn't the key point of focusing on the kung fu and the fighting, which is what this movie is billed as, then I would very easily say I don't enjoy it as much because it's just not put together well. I think maybe that's the best way that I can put a critical eye on the direction, is that there are some things that are visually appealing. As far as like how well the movie flows, not great, but it's at a level for me where I'm like, but it's still okay because we are gifted with all the rest of what's on the screen.
Yeah. Chad, what do you think about how this film's flow is? Like I said, we do have a conflict here. Jackie Chan, he often clashed with the director, and among their disagreements, Liao wanted a particular style of filming involving quick tracking shots and slow motion and using like wide angle lenses to play with the perspective. And Jackie, he's a master of his craft. He has a strong vision for what he wants to see, much like Bruce Lee did. And Bruce Lee had a lot of conflicts with Enter the Dragon. And that movie, to Dustin's point, suffered as well from some of that tug of war. And it's coming into play here too. He didn't appreciate what Liao wanted, and he wanted a more realistic Pyongar, is that fair, style of fighting? And Jackie Chan felt that the fans wanted more of that drunken style. And Liao wanted to use wires to hold people up. And Jackie is really opposed to that. He wants to do it for real. And that's something we didn't really talk about. That's another thing of what Jackie does. He brings authenticity to what he does. So he's got the skill, he's got the martial arts, and he's got the humor, but he's also does the stunts. So later we see him falling into a bed of coals and going across it. And so when you understand somebody who really breaks his body and puts his own name on there, on the line, and he really has mounted up a ton of injuries over the course of his career, he really does sacrifice himself to do this. And so when the director kind of doesn't come at it like that way, you're just bound to have this butting heads going at it like that. So there is a conflict there. And I do think it shows in that tonal shift that I talked about. This movie has a hard time having a cohesive vision because the star and the director were not at all sharing that vision together.
Yeah, first and foremost, I think Jackie Chan was right, at least with the style of movie I want. I always push back with slow-mo. I think it was overused. It's particularly overused late 80s, early 90s. You get that little like camera shutter sound. It's very irritating. It's grating to me, and it dates things. So I think this movie is preserved a little bit better than some of its peers around this time because it's not doing that nonsense. I don't like it. As far as Jackie Chan himself doing all these stunts, what's funny is when there's a giant metal pail, barrel, whatever, in the plant that falls down and he rolls out of the way just in time and you hear this big catastrophic thud, my immediate thought was, wow, I hope that was the only take because that would really hurt. And at the end of this movie, I don't know if your guys' versions did the same thing, but we get a weird out-of-place rock song and it shows all the stunts and a lot of the lines that were said wrong or things that went wrong. And sure enough, this big giant metal object falls on Jackie Chan and he's visibly in pain. Like this wasn't a fake metal object.
Yeah, it lands on him.
Yeah. Same with the coals. I watched him and I read he did it twice because he wasn't happy with it the first time.
That's right.
So that takes dedication. I watched the latest Jackass movie, and while it's a different form of stunt, it's kind of the same dedication to just we're going to do this. We're going to do this right, whatever it costs. Johnny Knoxville and bowls. Every time a bowl comes out and Johnny Knoxville's there, I'm like, this is going to end in you in a hospital. But he's like, it'll be funny. Whether it's funny or not to you, I don't know. But, that's their shtick.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just think that it's a shame that the director wasn't more in tune with him. I don't know necessarily because I haven't studied all the other Jackie Chan movies as much, but because this maybe comes earlier than some of his subsequent efforts, I think there's that the brand of Jackie Chan is better defined, and then you know what you're getting into, and so you probably avoid that from happening as much.
Well, and he gets in the director's chair, at least partially, starting in 93, 94 after this. So he starts being more involved with that side after this movie. So this is when he was like, okay, if I really want to present what I believe audiences want, I need to be behind the camera as well. I love coming back to this question because when I introduce people to the podcast, I tell them the name, Retro Movie Roundtable, and I say our rule is it's got to be 10 years old or older. And then I get into the discussion of what retro means, and it makes me think. I was a guest sometime last year that said like, oh yeah, well, we define retro as what you grew up with. And I grew up with this movie, and I grew up with this time, and I love that definition of it. And so this time period of like, I grew up during maybe the best time to be introduced to Jackie Chan's thing, comedy and fighting together. Yeah. It was like a match made in heaven.
But then we watched it go very, very south. I'm thinking of the Tuxedo. That's
it's pretty late in his run.
That was like 03 or maybe 01 to 03. I actually like the Tuxedo because I did and still do have a huge crush on Jennifer Love Hewitt.
I liked it at the time, but I also I haven't gone back to revisit it, and I'm a little bit afraid to. You know what I mean? Like even as I rank my Jackie Chan movies, I know it's probably on the lower end with Shanghai Nights, and probably not at the upper end.
Oh, Shanghai Nights is still regarded as one of his best.
I like it.
Now, when Jackie Chan takes over is towards the end of the movie, and it's worth mentioning he might be too much of a perfectionist, at least getting this early run in the director's seat. It shows signs of somebody who might not have had the discipline to carry a whole movie through, at least from a directorial standpoint. It took him nearly 4 months to shoot the last 7 minutes. And, I mean, in one hand, I really admire the dedication of that, but on the other hand, that can certainly blow your budget out the water and stuff like that, too. So, I mean, it's good that it happened at the end. But it does make me wonder what would happen if the director is either more amiable to listening to Jackie Chan and it's a more free-flowing exchange and identifying that this is the star and he has a vision for how he wants to choreograph these scenes, and therefore he probably has an idea of how they want to be shot and probably how the story is going to go, and it's going to be a more collaborative effort, and to not fight him so much on that. It does make you wonder what would have been achieved had you brought in a director who had that skill and could have been more in tune with Jackie. So you leave wondering what if.
Yeah, I
how much better, how much even better could it have been? And that sounds negative because it's good. I mean, we have a fun time. I think we've all said we had a fun time with this, and Jackie doing his magic will mesmerize you.
If it's not Jackie Chan himself, it's the sheer volume and quality combined of the fights you see. I was listening to a Muay Thai practitioner break down the final fight scene of this movie, and he said that he mentioned the same fact that you just did, and he said that in total this fight, like from beginning to end, is nearing 8 minutes, and there are many kung fu movies where the total amount of the fights, because of the length of them, is only 8 to 12 minutes. So we are flooded with quality fight scenes in this movie.
Without Jackie Chan's influence, do we get the joke of him hanging naked on the sign, and when they pull him down, they say, on the plus side, all the women want to date you.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, this was clearly Jackie Chan saying, write this in for me. Help me out.
Mm-hmm. And that was another one of those tonal things that I think this movie might have gone a little bit too mean. Also, when his dad kicks him out of the house, I think there's a funny way of kicking you out of the house in the way that I said, like, hey, these guys are getting beat up, but then they like kind of dust themselves off and be like, that guy's dangerous. Like, you know, somehow adding the dubs to it makes it funnier. Watching Jackie get kicked out by his dad being angry, there's a, you can't do that here. I said you can't do that. You're out. No, I mean it. You're out, and I'm employing discipline. Whereas it got a little bit harder to watch.
Much, huh?
Yeah, I agree. And this is not that kind of movie. Now, you can do that in a serious movie, but this isn't a serious movie at all. And so, again, I got to question the director on that scene and just be like,
yeah,
I think that you need to pull back there a little bit. And again, the tone. There's moments where the tone just doesn't go into play. You know, like you said, Dustin, where you meet your buddy and you've accidentally infiltrated the same place independently and you're fighting each other because you both knocked somebody else and taken their disguise and you believe the other guy's a guard. That's a very funny kind of Pink Panther-esque kind of like thing coming back together. That's very, very funny. And that doesn't go with this other thing. Now, it was saved by the stepmom of Anita Moy coming in, and Anita Meow, coming in, and she did the whole like, I'm having a baby, and like, but you wouldn't hit me kind of thing. And like, at first I was like, that's kind of dark, but then it was dark in a good way. She bent this thing that was just not working for me at all. And like, and it turned it into like, it's like, I'm going to beat you. It's like, you better not.
Better not,
like,
because I've got a baby in me. And she's doing the fake
jumps.
Yeah, forward and backwards.
So
I never could
So I
figure
can't tell
out
you
if
how
she's-
much she's saved that.
Was she telling the truth? I feel like towards the end she was telling the truth.
I don't know.
Chad,
Yeah.
I've seen this movie a million times. I still don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, and I like that I don't know, because I like that she's the next. She's very crafty, and so in the middle while the train seemed to be careening off the rails and into a lake or over a cliff, she magically puts it back on the rails and saves the day, like right when it needed it most. She's like Superman.
I mean, with what you're talking about, Russell, I think there's a cultural aspect that we in America may be missing out here. There's a lot of sense of honor that's going to be poured into Chinese culture movies. So I think for this type of movie, it was an appropriate thing for the culture it's being presented to. I didn't really have a problem with the scene at all. I do understand it got dark, but you expect it. There's some form of dip in the action. There's his main conflict wasn't so much with the Axe Gang, it was with his family, with his dad, and with the honor that he could carry for his dad's business, for his dad's fighting style. So yeah. To me, it was fine. They did kind of wallow in it for a little bit, but I thought we take a 10-minute detour, and then we have Mrs. Ling just jumping up and down, jumping and saying, I'm pregnant, and saving us from it.
There's a bunch here that I want to jump in on. Some of it about this movie, and then I want to take just a little bit of time to mention about its prequel, the first. But the first thing I'll say is, approaching this movie now for the podcast, as opposed to the hundreds or thousands of times I've seen it before, I would agree with you, Chad. Like, we do wallow in that, and the music is very good in that scene, and it makes you feel like this is rough, because it's not like it's going over well for either. Jackie Chan is still drunk. Fei Hung is still drunk, and Kei Ying is having like a hard time actually pulling him. They fall down into some pots. Like he's screaming at him. It does seem like a little too long, and like it tonally doesn't fit. And then it comes back later, it immediately after Ling says she's pregnant, and Kei Ying, his father, is so happy about it. He's walking in front of Fei Hung, and Fei Hung says, like, "Congratulations, father," and he looks at him and just says, "Thank you." like he's like this just wiped the slate clean.
Yeah.
Now the thing I wanted to bring up, and I'll try to keep it brief because I am mentioning another movie, is that this is the culmination of Jackie Chan's Fei Hung story, his Wong Fei Hung story, There are a bunch of them out there. They have been making movies about Wong Fei-hung since 1930. That being said, this is my favorite version of it. And in the 1978 version, what we learn is that Wong Fei-hung, Jackie Chan's character, is like a bad kid. He is getting into trouble all the time. He is like a womanizer. He brings dishonor to the family name. So much so that his father disowns him in the first movie and sends him to be punished. How does he get punished? He sends him to Fei-hung's great uncle, who is the original Drunken Master. He sends him to go train for a year with his uncle So. And his uncle So delights in torturing him. That being said, it does teach him this secret kung fu technique of the 8 drunken gods. And at the end of that movie, there was a hit on Fei-hung's dad, Qi-Ying. And Fei-hung stops the assassination by employing the use of this new kung fu. Then they go home. This movie, I have to believe, is a sequel to that, in that it's not a retelling of the Fei-hung story. It has already happened that, like, Fei-hung knows the 5 animal styles that his dad teaches at the school: tiger, crane, dragon, leopard, snake. He knows these styles, and people in the town know that he has the secret style, but he is forbidden to use it because he was such a bad kid that he only went to go, like, that was a punishment for him. And so he's kind of been, like, kept on a leash. And in this movie, he's kind of, like, when we're introduced to him, like, going through the market, like, he's kind of well regarded. You know, Fawn has a crush on him. Shang Tsung is like a rival / friend. Like, he's
like, he respects him.
He respects him, and he's kind of mild mannered. It's not until he starts drinking again that his father freaks out. And maybe you might think, like, oh, that was a really heavy freak out and disownment. But he'd already had to go through this before. And so this is the second time. And I know I'm bringing info from another movie in. He's had it up to here with Fei-hung a lot. And so, like, the breaking of this trust between them does lead to, like, throwing him out again. And if he's not thrown out, he doesn't get drunk at the restaurant. If he's not drunk at the restaurant, he's not caught by John and Henry and the rest of the British consulate, like, thugs. If that doesn't happen, he's not strung up in the these little things aren't perfect in the movie by themselves, but with, like, knowing the 1978 version, it gives you just a teeny little bit more context that I think really works. So, thank you for letting me go off on that, like, 5-minute, extra discussion, considering we're not talking about the 78 movie, but it does, like, change a little bit of how this movie is taken in.
Now, what do you think about the environments? We get to travel to another land here by doing this. Did you like going to... Is this Hong Kong, actually? I have to ask.
It's just 20th century China.
Okay, so it's just... We're going to China. It's a different world for us. Did you enjoy the trip, Chad?
Yeah. I always like the excuse to send us back to the point where there aren't cars. So it's nice to have these villages. You get a little different environment. I just feel like no cars, no guns. Your tools for the fighting movie are just different. So that's an excuse. As far as China itself, I think it lends to more martial arts being introduced. I can't remember the style of the fishmongers kung fu, but
Zai Li Fu.
Zai Li Fu. And so there's another, you could call it unnecessary, I suppose, fight scene, but it was greatly enjoyed by me. I like seeing the two styles pitted up against each other. So I don't think you have that culture in America where it's just like your local butcher also is a master of Krav Maga.
I mean, they said it in the song. Everybody was kung fu fighting, yes. Chad. Everybody.
Oh, God.
Their kicks were fast as lightning.
I've been avoiding that the entire episode. So, yes.
Well, I went there.
Of course. I can count on you, Russell.
Yeah, the docks though were fun, and I really enjoyed the train scene. In fact, I wanted more train scene. I had a great time going under the train, over the train, through the train cars. That is a playground for Jackie Chan to enjoy. I liked going under the stilted up
Like
under
the platform
foundations.
or something,
Yeah.
Pilotis is the fancy term that nobody will know what I'm talking about.
Nope.
But yep, under the stilted structure was a great battling environment. The streets were used really well. The restaurant scene was okay. I felt like that was a little bit more like it felt like a set. It felt contained in not a good way. And the steel mill was the other one that I know that they had to do. They had to have a lot of room for these stunts and stuff like that. But there was a sense of a stage there at the end, and that was the only time that the environments like kind of began to let me down a little bit, because some of these other street scenes and the other environments that we had felt very, again, authentic and real, and things were very controlled in the steel mill. And that was where I just felt like, maybe it just wasn't dirty enough, maybe it wasn't crowded enough, maybe there was just the camera couldn't turn and track as much and follow the fight movements as smoothly, because there are a lot of cuts and stuff like that, again, to the nature of their composing these stunts and stuff like that, so they need the control. But with that, it started to feel scripted. So that's a physical environment thing.
The train in the time period was a great excuse to be able to just throw ducks at people. And no, I'm not misspeaking. Go watch this movie. They're literally throwing ducks. Look out. They're going wild.
They've gone wild.
Yes. That looked like so much fun. Jackie Chan's having a lot of fun there.
Yeah, and I think we got to call it out. I really like the scene where they needed to come up with the ginseng roots. I mean, you have this serious, respected guy, but he has such an dishonorable step life. And I think the juxtaposition is hilarious. So much so that they poisoned him. It's like, he's only half dead.
Right.
Like,
He'll
I
get
mean, some of those lines, maybe it's because they're translated out of lines, but they're hit with a bluntness that I love. There's a darkness to it that I'm like, I don't know if that hits easier there, but I love the way that that's landing for me here.
And then there's sometimes, and it doesn't matter which dub you have, but she says, Ling says something like, "Oh, you'll just blame it on Cho," and out of shot, like way behind, like in the back, Cho falls down the stairs because he heard that he's going to get blamed again. Like very much like like anime humor, right? Where it's like a big like sweat drop will come on their forehead, or like they will fall to the ground in embarrassment or something. He really wraps up some of those jokes with a bow.
Yeah, I think it's that time. Should we get into our superlatives?
Absolutely.
Certainly.
All right, Chad, who is your MVP of The Legend of Drunken Master?
Jackie Chan. I mean, the stunts, the comedy, it was all on point for me, and I had a great time because of it.
Yeah. Justin? Is it a sweep? Because that's mine
Of course it is. Yes.
That's why we're talking about it, right?
Mhm.
10 years later, or more than 10 years later, yeah. Yeah, me too. Now, Best Supporting, I think this might be a runaway as well.
Yeah.
Chad?
She almost got MVP for me. I enjoyed Anita Moy's performance so very much. Like I told Dustin, I adored this character. This is probably my favorite character that I've run into all year, and solid candidate for throughout the rest of the year. So Anita Moy as Stepmom Ling.
Sneaky pick for Best Supporting Actress maybe at the end of the year. We'll see.
Yeah, it's going to be tough to unseat her.
Yeah, it's early though. But yeah, you're right. Dustin, how about you? Are you following suit?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think we all knew after we talked about the movie that's how it would be. She's incredible.
I literally considered her for MVP, but obviously, yes, Jackie taking over the director's seat. Obviously, the choreographing, you had to pick him. But the fact that I even thought about it, the fact that I even at one point compared her to Lucille Ball, and Chad did too, I mean, that's high praise.
That slap in the face scene where she can't get her jaw straight and she's kind of slurring her speech, that was very I Love Lucy-esque.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she's very physically funny. She's even through dubs, her wording is funny, like great character, well performed. I would watch a sequel of this family again, and largely because of her. So tougher. So those were relatively obvious. Hidden gem though, Chad. What's your hidden gem here?
Chi-Kwong Cheung as Chow, the servant. I just thought, like Dustin saying, his reactions in the background. He's the bumbling pratfall guy, and I thought he did a good job at it.
He has a good surprise face.
Yes. Very important.
And he's using the Imperial Seal as like a mortar and pestle to
Haven't seen it.
Yeah.
That was excellent. Dustin, how about you? Is that yours as well?
It isn't. I had so many. I could do a 30-minute episode on a deeper dive of this movie. So I'm just going to pick one, which is Russell, in your movie, the leader of Fred's gang, and in our version, in Chad and I's version, it was the leader of the Axe Game, is an actor whose name is HSUY, so like Shu Shui. He is uncredited in the movie. However, he plays the King of Bamboo in the 1978 version, who is one of the few people to hold a victory over Wong Fei-hung and his torturous uncle, Uncle So Hai. So, like, that guy had a long storied career, and he's just included in this, like, the 16 years later, he's just included as a little bonus.
Wow, that's a fun tie-in there. That is great. My hidden gem is going to go to the patient, Mr. Chan. I did not catch the actor's name, but I liked my bad dubs here, to be honest with you. I thought it made it funnier at times, and to just kind of be going through, like, getting the wrong ginseng, and then I just adding another well measured addition to that scene where so much funny stuff's going on. He might have gotten buried by all of the other fun stuff going on here. But yeah, nobody picked him, but the main bad guy, I guess his name he's Ken Lo, right? Who plays John?
Yes.
John.
Yeah. Dude can kick. We didn't give him his prop, so we got all the way through the Superlatives. I just want to throw it out there, like, good job for him too.
Yeah.
Recast. You had to recast somebody and put somebody else in their place. Chad, who's it going to be?
Ho Sung Pak. He plays Henry. He's one of the main bad guys. I didn't think he did a bad job, but I want Jet Li in this role. Just stern bad guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He would have been there at the time, I assume, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So I'm going to... Oh, sorry. Dustin, who is your recast?
The cool thing about Ho Sung Pak is that he is the character model for Liu Kang and Shang Tsung in the Mortal Kombat games. He also, it's also cool when a movie, I'm trying to get back into the previous part of the episode on accident, sorry y'all. It's cool when you can see in a movie that the henchmen are on different tiers. Like there's the low level beat 'em ups, and then this guy's like second in command. Then there's Ken Lo, John, and then like
that's the video game quality I was telling you about. Yeah.
Yes.
Like climbing the ladder, climbing the ladder, yeah.
I think he's a good candidate to be replaced. Another good candidate would have been, if this movie were made today, the British consul guy, like he's a nobody. He would have like a cameo. He would be like a really famous actor who has like 2 lines.
Yes.
But my recast is a guy named Bruno. If I say the name Bruno, do you know who I'm talking about?
We don't.
Sacha Baron Cohen is the only thing coming to my mind.
Oh, Russell just blew it. We don't talk about Bruno, Russell.
Well, Bruno is the big henchman who wields the flaming chain. Who literally could have been anybody. He's played by a guy named Vincent Tuatan. But I think if we were to replace him with Chun-Hua Lee, who is known for being a big East Asian... When I mean big, I mean like big, muscular built, like Schwarzenegger built.
Like a Bolo Young kind of guy.
That's exactly what I was going to say. He's very much like Bolo Young. And he actually was in the previous Drunken Master movie as Gorilla. And I think it would be a cool way to like have him pay homage either to reprise the same character or just to play someone else. Because I feel like that particular henchman... His scene was cool, but it literally could have been anything.
To have chains, like hot chains swinging around, you're right. He could have been cooler. Like, and I just said, like, and I literally said he's swinging red hot chains around, which is super cool.
Which is pretty cool.
Which is pretty cool. and somehow it could have been cooler. I'm with you. That's a good choice.
I like the change, but I want to go back to that British consulate recasting. Like, now you make me really want John Cleese here.
Oh, John Cleese would be good. I actually picked. So this is my recast. I'm going with Tim Curry for that.
Okay, yes, I like it.
And you're right. I think that it would only have to be very short, and they'd have to fly him in, or they might have to go to England to film it to make it look like that. But he doesn't have to be in there for very long. So make it happen. So
absolutely, yeah, I'm for that.
Best shot, Chad. We talked about the unevenness about some of the cinematography here, but best shot. There are some good ones.
I thought the fight under the train car, it just has an extremely claustrophobic shot, and it does a great job conveying how little room they have to maneuver. So that's my best shot.
Yeah. Dustin, best shot.
It was hard to pick. I did watch a compilation of people reacting to certain shots in this movie, and there is a double feint overhead kick that comes down at Fei Hung by John in the last, like sort of kick off, no pun intended, the last fight scene, where his foot gets stuck in the table. And when he removes his foot, he does a standing split. He takes his glasses off and puts them in his little vest pocket.
That was awesome, by the way.
Drunken boxing, huh? You want to give it a go? It's like, whoa. And I saw all these like YouTube people react to it, and I know it's coming, and I see their jaws drop, and I see these guys that like do like action podcasts and stuff, and they're like, whoa. And I just realized it's the exact same feeling for me every time. Like, this is nuts. So that's my shot.
That is that one stood out to me. That was a runner up for me. I felt like this movie could have had better transitions, given that we're filming in such an inspiring location. And so one of the ones that did a great job of this is there's a shot of a footbridge that then looks over at the group training in the distance, and then tracks, and then pans over and turns around a lamp, and then it cuts down onto the ground of the group training. There's not a lot of good camera movement like that in the movie. That's I'm gonna go ahead and praise it highly. It's a Spielbergian move, and I wanted a lot more of that, particularly while some of the action was happening. But it made for a good transition, and given that we're shooting in to me it's an exotic location, I wanted to see more of those transitions that soaked in the scenery like that and really immersed you in that. So they did it there. They didn't do it as much in other places, but they did it there, and I'm going to give them credit for doing it there. Good transition.
Good call.
Cool.
Best scene, Chad.
The first drunken boxing scene with Ling tossing the bottles to Wong, that's a great part. You get to see all of the drunken boxing moves, the washing machine style, the wheelbarrow. All of that is just perfection. And even the shots back to Ling, where she's saying, "Don't worry, it gives him power," because everyone else is like, "Is this a good idea?" So yeah, all of that is just their props flying everywhere, bodies flying everywhere, perfection.
Great choice there, Dustin. How about you?
That is a great choice. He does a standing pistol, and I believe the phrase he utters is "Eagle carries wine bottle." A pistol, for those that don't know, is when you're crouching with on one foot, and the other leg is at a perpendicular angle to the ground, and then you rise, you push up off the ground. Incredibly hard to do, and Jackie Chan makes it look easy.
Yeah.
That being said, that was my second favorite scene. My best scene is the final fight scene. I know we said that we didn't really mention Ken Lo much, because really his part is to be that like that final boss. That's what he is. He's in the movie before. He's in the train car when the ducks are thrown.
Yes.
You'll actually notice that when Fei Hung tosses Cho in front of his way, he dodges it and then jumps over him. Like, he's in the movie like sporadically, but he's there to be the final boss, and he's incredible. For those that did not know, he's Jackie Chan's in real life bodyguard. Jackie Chan met him at a club where he was the head of security and said, no, you're my head of security, which is just sick. And he does a great job. He's got Taekwondo moves in that. You even get comedy too. In that last 8-minute scene, you get Jackie Chan like spits out a little alcohol and it lights the end of the rod on fire. At the end of the scene, he's like kind of falling over and he blows a bubble with just like whatever that alcohol is, on top of the incredible fighting, which we really didn't talk about that much in this episode. But it's why it's worthy of the best scene.
I love Donnie Yen, but I am glad we got Ken Lo. Like, Donnie Yen was offered that part, and
No way, I didn't know that.
Yeah. My best scene is definitely going to be, my runner-up was definitely the axe fight, or the Fred fight, however you want to put it. The gang, like the army of men coming after these two masters. But I cannot go away from what Chad said. The 4-on-1, 5-on-1 kind of fight in the streets where we see everything unleashed. It's fun fighting, it's skill. The comedy's there. Ling is amazing, and she's really fanning the flames. We already knew she was mischievous, but now like she's hilariously mischievous here. So it's really good. Right down to the part where she's doing this Lucy-esque crying, like once once his father enters the scene, and then she's like egging him on, like, go get him. Oh no, wait. I mean, there were so many fun turns on that, and the fact that the gangsters were realizing that this guy had game, he could fight, and that was fun to see. All of that. This, in large part, was what's going to be bringing me back. This scene is fun, and that's what Jackie Chan's great at, and I really enjoyed it. So, this kind of scene in particular puts it at the top end. I did text Justin, and I was like, "Is this my favorite Jackie Chan movie?" And I thought about it a little more since then. Rumble in the Bronx is still my favorite Jackie Chan movie, but this is just under that.
What does it mean when there's a picture of a skull? Good stuff.
So, best wardrobe moment, Chad.
I really like the Axe Gang leader's suits, and Dustin and Russell, you both mentioned it. It differentiates them. So Henry and John's suits, I think Henry in particular, he had a really on-point suit. I like that a lot. So he was styling, but he wasn't the final boss.
It made them seem westernized, and like you're right, that was the bad guy uniform. Dustin, what about you, man?
Mine is actually a makeup moment. I remember watching like the DVD behind the scenes stuff back in 2001 about this, and they had to constantly reapply all of this like bold red paint to Jackie Chan's face whenever he's drinking, like whenever his character is drinking, and it would like run off so fast, and they had to do like a really particular like style to make sure it didn't stain the clothes, because he's sweating through it immediately. So it's kind of like a shout out to the makeup artist for being able to convey whether it's the puffy eyes or the red makeup / paint on his face. They do a good job of, regardless of if you think his, it is feigned intoxication, but the look of how it affects his body they nailed it for what they were going for.
Yeah. Now mine is going to be kind of the when he shows up at the end, he's got an all white kind of getup, which is kind of like the escalation. He's always got these like really baggy kind of like navy blue, like long tail kind of things. And that kind of accentuates his sloppy, drunken style of fighting in the motions. Like the wardrobe actually kind of goes with that. It's not that tight to the body. Somehow that looseness really accentuates that style that he's fighting. But he comes with the all white, which is kind of like the hero, the White Knight, riding in at the end.
Yeah.
And doesn't leave white. He shows you how dirty he gets in that fight, in that mill scene. So that's my pick for best wardrobe moment. Although I liked both of them knocking out a bad guy in the embassy, and both wearing enemy
both of them in the
uniforms and then bumping into each other. So for comedy, it's that. For symbolism and for tone of the movie, it's Jackie in white. But now change one thing, and only one thing, Chad.
So some of the coolest stunts wind up getting repeated in that final fight, and they're present in the first drunken boxing, the my best scene. And I was a little disappointed to see those same stunts, the wheelbarrow, the washing machine type effect. I didn't want to see those again. They were cool the first time, but I felt like it took away from how special that final fight was. And I just wish he'd done other moves. So my change one thing
I actually thought of that.
Is do different moves.
I thought the washing machine was a very funny move to do on lower level people, and that didn't fit the boss at the end as much.
Right.
Yeah.
One cool thing is the boss does counter or block some of his repertoire. Wheelbarrow he gets him with pretty hard, and he ends it with waterfall into the box. It almost seems like, oh, is that it? I agree with you about that completely.
Now, Dustin, change one thing.
There is a counterintelligence officer on the train who helps distract the guard from going through the Wong family's stuff, and he's the guy who offers a hand to Fei Hung as he's chasing the train to let him back up.
Yeah.
He also notices when he swaps the ginseng through the bars of the gate very early, very beginning of the movie. And then he's gone from the movie. Played by a very famous Chinese actor, Andy Lau.
I wrote, I didn't get to talk about that. I wrote that down in my notes. The first time I was like, this is going to be important later. And it didn't. It wasn't. And then I watched it the second time. I was like, wait, I did not remember why this was important. And I got through the whole movie and I was like, no, it's not important. That's really weird. That's really weird.
Failed the Chekhov gun test.
If somehow he was shown to be working with Fu and Chi, or like he provides the way for for Fei Hung to get into the factory later. There is like a big like labor riot / fight where Shang Tsung and Fan and Fo Shan like kind of help, like they're with the workers and they're fighting the oh my god, I can't believe we didn't even mention the tiger sword stopping the hammer of the gun from firing, by the way.
Yeah.
But if he was involved at least a little bit, I think it would help with what I described as clunkiness, as things like almost too conveniently like smushing together. If it had a little more nuance, I think it would be considered a better movie. And Andy Lau's cool, so that's mine.
Yeah. Really good points on both of those, to be honest with you. My change one thing is going to be, I just don't like how Wong is reduced to a blind, brain damaged, mentally challenged, laughing stock fool, and we're supposed to laugh at that at the end with alcohol poisoning in the hospital and never drinking again. Like, I mean, like I said, just say like he had to get his stomach pumped and have him just be like, I'm never drinking again. And then maybe like have like his mom, like his stepmom be like, well, I don't know about never. So like,
to be fair, that's the worst part of it. And so, like, you're making the correct choice by saying, do something else.
The director thought so, too.
I like the intent of doing something funny, but where their joke writers were that day, it wasn't funny. I mean, I don't know. I just have Cho do something funny. Like, it needs to be, like, I want to leave on a good note. I don't want to leave with, like, the whole, like, oh, he'll be fine, kind of pat on the back. How you have to cut that for America is also disappointing, and if I had only seen that, I would be disappointed with that. So
get him some ginseng.
Yeah. Like, have Mr. Chu come back and just be like, I got your ginseng for you this time, and then have him, like, walk off and, like, have the mom be like, we were at it, we don't have any ginseng. and then, like, look at the camera and be like, ooh. So there's just so many things you can do that are better than that. So,
you're right.
Best quote, chat.
So Fei Hung has finally tracked down Fu and Chi, and after all these fights, he just goes in with this indignant, apologize. Okay, sorry. Like, Fu and Chi is just not interested in this, whatever. So, whatever. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Dustin, how about you?
It's on the train when they're playing that game. I don't know what game they're playing. Some type of, if it's the game of Go or like Chinese checkers. I don't know what game they're playing, but Fei Hung cheats and like tries to distract his dad, and then dad turns back around and goes, "Oh, what is this?" And Jackie Chan is just like smiling there with Chad. He goes, "We call it cheating." The reason I picked this one because Russell, your movie does not have that line. It's a completely different line.
No,
which
it's
is
not as blunt as that.
Right.
Yeah.
But if we call it cheating is awesome. The version you have is something like it's better to forgive or something like that.
It's just coy. Yeah, playing coy.
Yeah.
Yeah. My best quote's going to be, "Don't worry, blame it on Cho."
Yes. Solid advice.
Stairfall.
Yep, I had to pick a funny one. All right, so we've come full circle, and on a 5-star scale with half-star intervals, Chad, this was your first time with this movie. What's your takeaway?
Yeah, so give you a slight background before my rating. Russell has been worried about me this year. He has presumed that I have gone to final stage angry, bitter old man, where my ratings have suffered. And he's just like, "Are you okay?"
Like, he's going to turn into Clint Eastwood from Gran Torino. It's going to happen. We don't turn the ship around.
Get off my lawn. Yes. So when this got picked, there was concern from Russell of like, do I just need to bench you until you found your happy place? Well, Dustin, you have helped me find my happy place. And I wanted to text you and be like, yes, finally I have something to gush over and praise. I'm giving this a 4.5. I thought it was so much fun. I enjoyed it so much. It's been a breath of fresh air, and I am so glad that you used a dealer's choice to say this is what we're doing. So
right
rock
on.
This was awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, Chad had been on a rough slide of 8, I'd say, of just saying like this isn't working for me. So not just ruin your rankings at the end of the year. Dustin, how about you? 5-star scale. What's it going to be for you?
I need to come back with Chad to say I really appreciate your support in my ranking of Valentine's Day. You really were behind me in my I would say my valor in ranking that what I ranked it. Listeners, you'll have to tune in to find out yourself. This is also for me, even though I've made it pretty clear that this is one of my favorite movies. I think 4.5 stars is appropriate for this movie. I would say for a kung fu movie, it's a 5-star movie, but I've done this before. Like, that's categorical. As far as overall, I think it's 4.5. I would say that when I mentioned that clunkiness earlier, that factored in. When I mentioned this is the hardest part. If I were ranking the 1994 version that had a dub added later and not the Dimension Films release in the States, it would be a 4. The dialogue is that different, y'all. So if you're going to see it, I recommend it's under so many names. It's under Drunken Master 2. It's under Ziu-Chuan 2. It's also under The Legend of Drunken Master. I think the Dimension Films Legend of Drunken Master is a 4.5, and the other versions are 4 stars. So this is a 4.5 for me.
Wow, yeah. And the interesting thing about the one that I watched is, again, I got mine through Apple TV, by the way. The dubs drop out altogether, and you have a brief moment of subtitles all of a sudden. I even thought it was an error, but like it was just, I guess something went wrong with the dubs for about 60 seconds.
It's also well known that there are like the perfect cut, the cut that exists on like release number 3 on Laserdisc only in China in 94. Like that's the perfect cut, and it does not exist anywhere. And the only like the best considered version of this movie has Cantonese subtitles burned in. You can't turn them off. It's wild how approaching this movie. I'm sorry to jump in on your rating, but it's wild how different how that affects it. So
I think this could be affecting it because I think you guys watched the other version, and I think that as you're putting it, I guess I watched the wrong version. I kind of came out of this leaning 3.5, but as I've talked about it with you guys, I really feel like I am going to elevate this to 4 because of, again, the magnetism of Jackie Chan. He just puts you in such a good spot. And, you know, I'm one of those people that is going to be drifted by how much I just enjoyed the movie. There's construction issues. There's direction issues that I would normally would say have the chance to pull this down like towards the 3 zone, but the job done by Anita Moy and Jackie Chan and just really the other range of support characters is good enough that the fact that I said I want to own this movie, I want to watch this again, I want to show this to my wife, I want to show this to my friends who like this kind of stuff. And when I started saying that, like I said, you've entered the realm of 4 at that point. So like it passes the, like how I'm responding to it is what's giving it a 4. And I'm just acknowledging that as a fan, I'm choosing to overlook those problems and just saying like, I like it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fun here. And you guys have raised my question. I'm surprised I'm the low voter on this one because I said, I think I'm going to probably be in the middle on this one, but I think that you guys got a hold of a better version than me. It was made for a good conversation, but it now makes me curious to see if I got the better one, would I join you guys on the 4.5 plateau?
Maybe.
And I will seek it out.
I believe so, but I don't know.
You got to shell up some serious dollars to own this one. So we'll find out someday. But yeah. So next time, do you want to help me pick a movie for next time? Dustin.
Let's do it.
All right. Option 1, Moonstruck from 1987. Oh, by the way, this is Oscar season that we're coming up into. So all of these movies were nominated for Oscars. So option number 1, Moonstruck from 1987. Loretta Castorini, a bookkeeper from Brooklyn, New York, finds herself in a difficult situation when she falls for her brother, the man she has agreed to marry. Option 2, Boys in the Hood from 1991. Follow the lives of 3 young males living in the Crenshaw ghetto in Los Angeles, dissecting questions of race, relationships, violence, and future prospects. And option 3, Broadcast News from 1987. Take 2 rival television reporters, one handsome, one talented, both male, and add 1 producer female, mix well, and watch the sparks fly.
We're going with the year of my birth, 87, Broadcast News.
All right. Chad, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Justin, thank you. And thank you all the lords, ladies, and knights of the Retro Movie Roundtable. We invite you to reach out to us, subscribe, rate, and review to us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, wherever you get your podcast. Give us some good reviews out there. Give us a like on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at @movie_retro. Email us at retromovieroundtable@yahoo.com. And providing and producing this fun podcast is fun, but not free. So we invite you to support the show at our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/Retro Movie Roundtable. Any contribution is much appreciated and will go towards making the show better for you, the listeners. As always, thank you for listening. Be good to each other and watch more movies. Chad?
For you, the day bison graced your village was the most important day of your life. But for me, it was Tuesday.
This movie stars Jackie Chan, Anita Meow.
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 Awesome, dude.
T-Lung, and Felix Wong.
How about we just skip that section?
Maybe so. Maybe it was best to leave it out.
Oh, I'm saving this and uploading it to P-Cloud so we can listen to it later.
Yeah.
Russell can't even
Maybe-
pronounce vaguely foreign names. Hector
Anita Meow.
Sandra?
Yep. You know what? Jackie Chan has outtakes in the end. You can just throw this one at the very end after Chad's quote.